Hi everyone, welcome to Birthing at Home, a podcast. I'm Elsie, your host. I'm a home birth mum of 2 little boys, I'm a mental health nurse, the co-creator of Homebirth Victoria, and I'm a Melbourne-based doula. If you want to learn more about me, the podcast, or my work, check out www.birthingathome.apodcast. And before we begin today, I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people who are the traditional custodians of the land I'm recording on in Naarm, Melbourne, Australia. I would also like to acknowledge that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have been birthing at home on country for tens of thousands of years prior to the British invasion and acknowledge that sovereignty has never been ceded. This is episode 50. Whoa, this is the 50th birth at home story and it is shared today by Georgia in Victoria, a nurse, a midwife and mum to Amelie and Ellidy, who were both born at home. Georgia shares with us her journey to home birth before being a midwife and her journey with Elidy as a midwife. She shares about her anxieties, her long labours, her postpartum experience during COVID-19 and her dramas when a scan revealed abnormalities with her baby's liver. Part of Georgia's story is also briefly sharing her experience planning home birth when her sister had previously delivered a baby born sleeping. So for this reason, please take care of yourself if listening to this amazing episode and enjoy the 50th birth story for the podcast. Welcome, Georgia, to Birthing at Home, a podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me. Do you want to give a bit of background to who you are, where you're located, who's in your family, that kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Georgia. I am a mother of 2. I have 2 beautiful girls, Amelie and Ellidy. I am a midwife. And sorry, I forgot my husband.
That's all right. An afterthought.
Clayton. And we are located in Shepparton, in Goulburn Valley.
Nice.
And yeah, that's
cool. And so both your little girls were born at home?
Yes, both born at home.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, exactly. So how old is your eldest?
Amelie is 3. She's 3 and a bit.
3 and a bit, yeah. And so she was born in what, like 2021?
Yeah, April 2021. So
oh my gosh.
Just in the midst of COVID.
Yeah. Murphy, my eldest, was born in April 2020.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, right. I mean, a year later, probably still the same situation. It's still madness. And so what was your journey to finding home birth? Obviously, you're a midwife now, but were you a midwife before your whole pregnancy journey began?
No, I wasn't. I was a registered nurse. It was really weird how I found home birth. I've always been very maternal and I always have wanted to have kids very young, but I just wasn't until I met my husband that I was like, right, I'm ready. And I think as soon as, I was in that relationship where I was like, I'm going to have my kids with this man, I started reading Reed Dempsey's books.
Wow. Yeah.
Jane Hardwick Collins. I started listening to all the podcasts, birthing podcasts and things. And I do remember when I was younger, saying, I'm going to get the epidural as soon as I get to hospital. That was
wow.
I do remember saying that at some point. That was my mindset. And I think just listening to podcasts was where home birth kind of came into my awareness and sort of planted a seed.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, wow. I listened to a podcast where the woman had 5 babies at home.
Wow.
5 babies at home.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, that sounds really beautiful.
Yeah.
And then I started reading Ria's books and Jane Hardwick Collins, and I still didn't think that home birth was an option for me at this time in my area.
Yeah. Just simply because of what's available in the Shepparton area. Yeah.
I hadn't heard of anyone having a home birth around here.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, looking at different hospitals and, do we have any birth centres and things like this?
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until I went to my naturopath because I had a little bit of struggle falling pregnant.
Yep.
So I was seeing naturopath and acupuncture and things like that. And my naturopath had said that she had home births in Shepparton.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And she was like, oh, someone actually just started up a little bit like 45 minutes away, but she would travel here.
Yeah.
Doing home births. I'm like, oh, okay, amazing. So I looked her up and I didn't know that I was pregnant at this time. I was would have just conceived.
Yeah, wow.
And then when I found out that I was pregnant, I contacted that midwife.
Yeah.
And that was how
you came to it.
How I came to it.
And did you say your husband's name's Clayton?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was his take on this whole thing?
Well, I just kind of said it in a fleeting comment at the start, after I'd fallen pregnant. I'm like, oh, by the way, I think I want to have a home birth. And I think he thought I was joking initially, but he was really receptive to it. When I said, no, I'm dead set serious. He was like, that's fine. It's your body. Whatever you want to do, I trust.
Yeah.
I trust that it's the right thing.
Yeah.
So, he was actually really good. We didn't tell anyone else in my pregnancy, though, that we were having a home birth.
Yeah, wow.
So, I told my mum and things like that, but not his family, and I was very selective of who I told.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Once you sort of had stumbled upon your naturopath who had home births or whatever, did you start to then find out about other people in the community that had home births, or what's it like in Shepparton with home birth? Yeah,
no, I still didn't really know of anyone who had a home birth.
Yeah.
It was just, I felt pretty,
I had
no one that I could go to, for their experience or anything at that time.
Yeah.
I do now.
Yeah.
There's definitely, it's more.
A little group. Yeah. Yeah, amazing. And being a registered nurse, do you think that kind of influenced, I don't know, some part of this journey? Whether, I guess personally from my experience as a registered nurse, I see so many issues with the system. And I guess that just reinforces my decision to birth at home, because I know that I know what the system's like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that had an impact on you?
It wasn't so much about the system at that time, I don't think. Now I know for sure.
Yeah.
But and I don't want, it would have to be the very, very, very last resort for me to birth there.
Yeah. Ditto. Yeah.
But at the time it was a little bit of I don't want to go to my workplace to birth.
So true. Yep.
And a little bit of I don't want to travel as well, because the surrounding hospitals are at least 45 minutes away, and I'm like, I don't want to be driving in labour.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But a big part of it was I don't want to come to my workplace in labour.
Yeah. What was it like in Shepparton in 2021 or, late 2020 with the COVID stuff? Because so the midwife was 45-ish minutes away. So did she come out each visit, or was there a lot of telehealth, or what was that like?
That midwife, I didn't end up staying with her.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So I had a booking visit with her, and as I said, I thought that that was the only option. I had a booking visit with her, and I booked in, and it just for the days and a couple of weeks, I think it was after, I was just it just doesn't feel right for me.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel like this person is the right
fit.
Yeah. But I didn't think there was any other option until I went to my GP for something. I can't remember what it was now. And I mentioned that I was having a home birth, and he was like, oh, is that with Sarah?
So-and-so,
and I said, no, actually, who's that?
Yeah, wow, so your GP knew.
Yeah,
that's pretty amazing.
And he gave me her details. and I contacted her and I had a meeting with her.
Yeah.
And that felt like a better fit.
Yeah.
So I changed care providers at about 18 weeks, I think it was.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I think that's like something, it's so awesome that you say that because, yeah, I mean, there's already so much pressure around like, well, at the moment, a lot of women encounter that difficulty with just a referral. Obviously, that's being removed in November, but, you know, right now that still is meant to happen. And so like when you are choosing a midwife, yeah, it does kind of feel like, oh, well, you're locked in and like there's not like thousands of midwives about, you know? So it's, yeah, wow, that's amazing that your GP, well, really you must have a really good GP.
Yeah, it is.
That's so cool.
And when I said to him that I was having a home birth, he was just like, oh, yeah, cool. Like he didn't try and talk me out of it at all. The only thing he said was, it's good to still book at the hospital in case you need to transfer. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, sure. But he did try and like talk me out of it or anything. And like I said, he gave me the contact details of
that's fantastic. That's what you know, a part of Home Birth Victoria, that's what we had sort of started to do before all this professional indemnity insurance thing blew up, is to connect with GPs around the state of Victoria. You know, not all GPs are going to be open-minded to it, but to make them aware of like who and what is available in like their area so that stuff like that can happen, you know, because women are still going to be going to their GPs for bloods or like initial scans or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, they're like the, you know, the gatekeepers of so much care. So that's, amazing. Yeah. What was your pregnancy like?
It was pretty smooth sailing. I had a bit of anxiety at the start until I didn't have any nausea or anything. Yeah. Like I said, it was a little bit of a journey to conception. So I think I had a little bit of distrust in my body. I ended up having to take Clomid to fall pregnant. Yeah. So I think because of that journey, I had a little bit of distrust in my body of, you know, like that I can't fall pregnant naturally. And I just, had a lot of nervousness that I was going to lose that pregnancy. Also, I had some previous trauma. This is a bit of a trigger warning of stillbirth. Yeah. My sister had a full-term stillbirth when I was 16. Whoa. Which obviously had a huge impact on our family. Yeah. So I had a bit of that trauma, I guess, come up that I had to work through. Yeah. So I was super anxious for the first, until I could feel a baby move, which was about 18 weeks. Yeah. And just a lot of emotion come up around that. Yeah.
Did you like see a psychologist or somebody like that, or was it just your kind of own personal, internal sort of healing journey?
Yeah, it was just like inner work.
Yeah.
And it was just a very emotional time. And I spoke a lot with my sister around that as well. Yeah. And she was kind of like, upset because she's like, I knew that this would happen when you were ready. Like that, she said, I wish it didn't have to be like this, that, I can't remember what, like
the ripple effect that such a loss has. Yeah. Yeah.
She's like, I wish that you could just enjoy your first pregnancy with like the naivety kind of that nothing would happen. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, once I could feel the baby move and I felt pregnant, I was fine. But it was like those first 20 weeks, I had no symptoms of anything. I had no nausea, which I know is a good thing. Yeah. I had sore boobs for a little bit at the start, but then, they go away, and I just felt so normal, and you don't know what it's like in your first pregnancy.
Yeah.
So it was just a really, I just wanted some reassurance that everything was okay.
Yeah.
And once
were you working at this time as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once I could feel the baby move, then I was absolutely fine.
Yeah.
I had no more concerns of anything really.
Yeah.
And my pregnancy was very easy, I guess. I was having regular acupuncture, and
did you do any like birth education classes or stuff like that?
As I said, like I read all the books and things like that, listened to thousands of podcasts.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I did do a birth class with the naturopath that I mentioned earlier. She did I think it's called Birthing from Within.
Okay, yep.
It's a particular, like a known.
Yeah, I think it's like, I was going to say, I think I have like the book Birthing Within, but it's not right next to me. But it's by Pam or Pamela or something, I think initially. Yeah, somebody,
So I did that, which was fine. It wasn't any new information.
Yeah.
I don't feel like.
Did Clayton do it as well?
No, he didn't.
Dodgy.
No, I was solo there.
Yeah. Did he have any fears that you know of?
No, he was just like, I trust you.
I trust you.
Your body, and I trust that you know what you're doing. And
what kind of nursing do you do?
At that time, I was just in my grad year, so I was actually working in dialysis for my pregnancy.
Yeah.
Which is very far from my passion, but also it was nice.
Your foot's in the door, so like that's what matters.
It was actually quite nice working in there in your pregnancy because it's not too full on.
Hectic.
It was a great team, and the patients, you get to know them and build a bit of a relationship with them. So it was actually quite nice to work in there. Through my pregnancy.
Cool.
So pregnancy was fine up until about 36 weeks. Clay and I went away camping. It must have been February or March at this time.
Yeah.
And when we were driving home, I had all this fluid on my ankles, and I'm like, oh no, what's going on here?
Yeah.
It just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And anyway, I got seen by my midwife, a couple of days later. My blood pressure had gone up a bit. Yeah. So it was all pregnancy, around 110 over 60 or something, like very normal. Yeah. And then it went up to 130 over 85, so still normal.
But such a sudden increase.
A jump, and with the fluid. So it was a little bit stressful. I felt fine though. Yeah. Had the preeclampsia bloods done, which came back normal. Yeah. And then I think I got seen again the next week. Blood pressure was still the same but stable. Not rising anymore. I think I had the bloods done again. And then the next time I see my midwife, it was still the same, blood pressure was still 130 over 85. Yeah. Fluid still the same, still felt fine.
So you had that initial sort of gush of clear fluid, or?
Oh, no, sorry. This is fluid in my, edema.
I was like,
sorry.
Yeah, okay, that's okay, that's all right. Yeah, okay, yeah, that makes a heap more sense. Yeah. I was like, what? They're just waiting a few weeks. She's leaking waters, amniotic fluid. Yeah, okay, cool. So you had swelling, swelling and blood pressure. Yeah.
And then they wanted to do the bloods for a third time, and I was like, no. I mean, they're not changing. Yeah. I'm completely fine. My blood pressure stayed the same. I don't think we need to do the bloods again. That's causing me stress waiting for the results. And she was like, okay, just documented that I declined.
Yeah.
And then I think I must have been about 39 weeks at that point anyway, because from 39 weeks I started to have signs of labour anyway.
Yeah, cool, yeah.
So, yeah, sure, jump into the...
Yeah. What were your signs of labour?
So as I said, from about 39 weeks I started to have some signs. I lost my mucus plug.
Yeah.
And was a little bit crampy one night.
Yeah.
We went to sleep and it, all the cramps fizzled out. And then the next couple of days I was super emotional.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
I was just like crying over nothing.
Yeah. Oh.
And that was on the Monday, Tuesday that I was feeling really emotional. And then Wednesday I started to get some irregular tightenings.
Yeah.
It's just like period cramps. They were every hour or something. And it just went on all day, like very consistent, like far apart, but, they'll come in every hour, these cramps. And I sort of was like, oh, okay, I think something, it might be starting to happen.
Yeah.
I hadn't mentioned anything to anyone. It was all internal.
Yeah.
And then went to sleep that night on the Wednesday. Got a little bit of sleep and woke up at about 4 a.m. on the Thursday morning.
Yeah.
And they were a little bit more painful and I was like, oh, I can't really lay here any longer. So I got up at about 4 and popped the TENS machine on.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in my wardrobe actually.
In your wardrobe? Oh my God, that's so classic.
With the TENS machine on.
Yeah.
And then my partner woke up at like 6 and he's like, what are
you doing in your wardrobe?
And I'm like, oh, I'm having some tightenings, but there's nothing. Yeah. Go to work because it's first labour. It'll go on forever. Don't worry. Just go to work. And he's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's nothing. So he went to work for a little bit and he's like, I couldn't concentrate.
Just keep thinking about you in the wardrobe. Oh my gosh.
I did have an acupuncture appointment booked already that morning. I think it was like 9 o'clock or something, 10 o'clock that I went to. I got my sister-in-law to take me to that appointment. They were about 7 minutes apart or something at the moment. I wasn't like timing them exactly, but they were coming quite frequently. Yeah. But still very manageable. So I went to the acupuncture. That was uncomfortable. Yeah. Laying there while, not being able to move. Yeah. While I was having these tightenings. Then I went home. I did have a birth photographer. She's not a birth photographer, a photographer, but she was doing my birth. So I let her know that I was in early labour, but nothing happening fast. She was like, oh, I'll just come over and take some photos of like early labour, what you're doing. Yeah, cool. So she came over for a little bit, took some photos. I still hadn't mentioned anything to the midwife at this point. Then I just, was in early labour at home for the morning and the afternoon. It was I was just going about the day. Yeah. I think I was trying to watch a movie or something. Trying to get like some food in and things before it got more intense. Yeah. And then Clay was just pottering around. He ended up coming home from work at about 10, I think.
Oh, really? Yeah. What does he do for work?
He's a builder.
Yeah.
And it started to get a little bit more intense in the afternoon around 4 or 5. I let my midwife know at about 5 that I'd been in early labour and feel like things are picking up a little bit. And she, listened to me on the phone and she's like, try and get some dinner in. Yeah. Keep going and I'll call you back in a couple of hours. Yeah. Then she called me back called Clay at about 8:30 or something, and I was much more vocal then, and I wasn't able to talk and in between or, talk to her and things like that. And so she's like, all right, I'll start to get my things ready and head over. And she came over at about 9:30.
Yeah.
I had said in my pregnancy, I'm okay with checks, but I don't want to know what I am.
Yeah, sure.
So she checked me when she got there, and I was 5 centimetres but didn't know at the time.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, you're doing really well. Like, just keep doing your thing. I had the TENS machine on up until that point, and then I got in the shower.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't get comfortable. I was very active in this labour. I was up.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole contraction, I would move and then rest in between and then move every time, like get up again every time the contraction would start. And I was coping by swearing.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's evidence to say that like swearing is like therapeutic, it releases something. So
Clay was like, I've never heard that word said in so many different contexts.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So yeah, I think I was just in and out of the shower. And then it got to like, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And my midwife checked me again and noted I hadn't changed, but again, I didn't know this at the time.
Yeah.
And noted that Bub was in a bit of on my notes it says that she was posterior.
Okay.
I never felt like it was a posterior labour at all.
Yeah, well.
I never had any back pain or anything.
Yeah.
And her head was asynclitic. So for those that don't know, just instead of the crown pushing on the cervix, it was the head's a little bit skew. So my cervix wasn't thinning out and dilating at the same consistency. Like one side of my cervix was quite thick and the other thin, and I hadn't changed. So then my midwife was like, I think we need to start doing some spinning babies.
Yeah, okay.
Things to try and get Bub's head in a better position. It's not very well applied to the cervix. And I love spinning babies, but it is so not fun in labour. Oh, my God.
No, not at all.
It started at about 1:30 that we had to start doing the spinning babies exercises. It was like the pelvic lift and tilt, which is horrible. Yeah. Inversions, which are horrible.
Oh, my God. Inversions in labour. Oh, what could be worse?
Oh. All of them, I feel like we did. Sideline release, you name it.
Yeah.
So that went on for hours. Oh, and at some point, I think it was around 2:30 in the morning, I got in the pool for a rest. Yeah.
Because by this point you've been in like early labour and actual labour for ages.
Yes. So like early labour from 4 a.m. then the Thursday morning. Yeah. And then I feel like it got intense at about 4 p.m.
Yeah.
So then,
and now it's like another 12 hours later, basically. Yeah.
2 in the morning. I got in the pool for a bit of a rest, and when I got in there, I had a contraction, and it was kind of like an involuntary push with it, but it was like my body was like, you can't help it. Yeah. It wasn't like a bearing down push. It was like a kind of with the contraction.
Yeah,
I was like, whoa, what was that? My body, it was like vomiting. I could not control it or anything, and I was just like, what just happened? And that went on for the next 6 hours or whatever it was until she was born. It was horrible.
What? Oh, my gosh.
It was horrible. And anyone that's experienced it will know exactly what I'm talking about, this involuntary pushing, where it's like positional. Yeah. It's because the baby's pressing on that nerve that's makes you
wow.
want to push, but you're not ready to push.
Wow.
And I just didn't know what to do with it, with that urge. I was like resisting it for all those hours.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I know I'm not ready to push.
Yeah.
I know I'm not anywhere near fully dilated. Like, I didn't know that consciously, but I just knew that I wasn't at that point internally. So I was really resisting it. And I feel in hindsight I must have been very tense in that labour, because I remember it feeling much more painful than my second labour.
Yeah.
I remember feeling very, like, everything was so painful. I couldn't eat or drink in that labour. I was just like in survival mode.
Yeah. So during all of this, did you start to have thoughts of doubt, or like thoughts of like worry that this wasn't going to happen, or you were just so like in labour land that?
Yeah, not yet at this point. Until about 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, wow.
So
I feel exhausted just hearing about your exhaustion. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
It got to like, I think it was about 4 a.m. And my midwife put me in the sideline release position.
Yeah.
And was like, now you need to try and have some rest. And I was like, fucking rest am I going to have? Active labour.
What are you freaking talking about? Have you ever been in a birth? I'm in pain.
So annoyed because I was dealing with the contractions by moving.
Yeah.
I had to lie there in this bloody sideline release.
Yeah.
It was like,
just have a rest. Just relax.
And she went and had a nap.
Oh, Georgia. Oh my gosh. So just to clarify, so you've got Clay and the photographer.
No, she came for a little bit. At like 2 when I got in the pool, and she took some photos, and then my midwife had said, we're still a while away.
Okay.
Go home and I'll call you. Like, we'll call you when we're a bit closer.
Yeah.
So she did come and took some photos of that. She maybe was there for like half an hour, and took some photos of us doing. I was in the pool and then doing some spinning baby stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so it's just like the midwife, the primary midwife, and Clay and yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm laying in this sideline release, and she was having a nap in the spare room. And then it got to, I'd lay there for an hour, I think.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck this. I'm getting up and getting in the shower. This is way too uncomfortable. Got in the shower for a little bit, I think maybe an hour again in there. And then it got to like 6 a.m. And I was like to Clay, where is she?
Oh.
Go and wake her up.
Oh, Georgia. Oh.
And he went and woke her up.
Yeah.
And then it's about 6 a.m. and she come down. I'm like, I'm done. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
I'm exhausted. Like, what can we do?
Yeah.
And I needed to wee at that point, and I couldn't wee.
Yeah, well.
Like, every time I'd sit down on the toilet, I'd get a huge contraction and I'd shoot up. I was trying to wee in the shower. That wasn't working.
Yeah.
But I could feel that my bladder was full. So she did an in-out catheter at that point.
Yeah.
I was like severely dehydrated. Like I said, I could hardly drink in this labour.
Yeah.
I didn't eat anything. And I was very dehydrated. I was exhausted. And she checked me again at that point when she did the in-out catheter, and I was still the same.
Wow.
With the head still asynclitic.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, and at that point she kind of explained what was going on. She said, she didn't tell me what I was, but she said, baby's head's not in a great position. You haven't changed for a while.
Yeah.
You know, your cervix hasn't changed for a little while. And the options were kind of, she was like, we can get the second midwife to come from Melbourne.
Yeah.
And we can try break your waters and see what happens.
Yeah.
Or we can transfer to hospital.
Yeah.
And, you know, take things from there, whatever happens in hospital.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to hospital. Call that midwife.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
Call the midwife and break my waters.
Yeah.
And so that was the plan. The second midwife was then on her way. That was from about 7:30.
Yeah.
And I was like, what am I going to do in the meantime to get through the next 2 hours? It's a 2-hour drive from Melbourne.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot to mention at that point, the same, when all this was happening, she put some IV fluids up.
Okay.
I was dead dry.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so how am I going to get through the next 2 hours while I wait for the second midwife?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, maybe do you want to hop in the pool again? I'm like, yep, please. So we did a few more spinning babies things just before I got in.
Yeah.
I think it was I had one leg up on a cushion or a chair.
Yeah.
And she was shaking my hips.
Yeah.
Through the contractions while I had one leg up.
Yeah.
Like a lunge position.
Yeah.
And then I got in the pool and I was still having this involuntary pushing the whole time, by the way. And when I got in the pool, my midwife was like, why don't you just try and let your body do whatever it's trying to do with the involuntary push.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Because as I said before, I was resisting it and kind of tensing up.
Yeah.
But I think I was just tensing that whole labour anyway. So I tried to relax into it and let my body do whatever it was trying to do. And then my waters broke on their own, through
Wow.
one of those big contractions.
Yeah.
And it was the biggest relief. I was like, I think, I felt the pop and I was like, I think my waters just broke.
Yeah.
And then it was like immediately I felt her drop down into the birth canal.
Yeah.
And I was like, straight away after my waters broke, I was like, feels like it's coming out my bum.
Yeah. There you go.
And my midwife was like, what?
Yeah.
Like so surprised.
Yeah.
And because the second midwife, Clay at this point had gone to have a shower.
Yeah.
And I was like, where's Clay? Like, we are on here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And the second midwife was coming from Melbourne and wasn't going to be there, anytime soon.
Yeah.
So there was another local midwife that lived around the corner.
Oh, cool.
That, my midwife could call.
Yeah.
As a second. And we called the birth photographer.
Yeah.
And she made it in time and I think my waters broke at 8:30 and I immediately felt her drop down.
Yeah.
And I felt like I immediately started pushing, but my notes, say I didn't start pushing till around 9.
Okay, yeah.
But you know what time's like when you're in labour. Like,
Yeah. Just a blur. Yeah.
And once I felt her drop down and I felt like that pressure and I felt the urge to push, I was ecstatic already because I was like, it's actually happening. There's an end in sight.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hospital.
Yeah.
And I remember when my midwife said we'll either have to go to hospital or
wait for the
try
second.
and break your waters.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, there's no way I'm getting in an ambulance right now.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
Like, that would just, So I think, yeah, maybe something in my brain was just switched and was like, right, we need to get this back.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how people do it, like, labouring so far along at home and then transferring in. I remember having the same sort of thought with Murphy. And I think, like, his head was out, or like, and his shoulders were like a little bit stuck, whatever you want to call it. And I remember thinking, they will never, like, because we also lived in an apartment, and I was like, how am I going to get on a stretcher in the lift? And then, like, it just, this is never going to work. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I was like, there's photos of me full smiling at this point. So
that's brilliant.
I felt like I loved the pushing because I was like, this is productive.
Yeah.
You know, with the contractions, you're like, this could just go on forever.
Yeah.
And when I was pushing, I was like, there is an end in sight when you're there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was in the pool. I was kind of like leaning over the edge of the pool.
Yeah.
With one leg like out to the side. And
Yeah,
the
okay,
other.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I felt like that was the fetal ejection reflex with my first Amelie. I felt like she was really easy to push out.
Wow. Yeah.
And yeah, she just was born at 9:25.
Wow.
Yeah, and the photographer just made it.
Yeah.
The second midwife only lived around the corner, so
yeah,
you know, the on-call one.
Yeah.
So she came, and it was just the best moment ever.
Yeah.
I was so relieved that I'd done it, and with, you know, the thought of going to hospital just an hour before.
Yeah. And so, like, in total, like, from the start of, like, what you would call like early labour, was it like almost like 30 hours or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was actively, you know, working through contractions for about 30 hours.
Wow.
With, you know, barely anything to eat and barely anything to drink.
Dehydrated. Yeah. No sleep. Yeah. Yeah. Holy moly.
After it, I was just had that much adrenaline that I think I stayed awake for about another 24 hours.
Yeah, of course. Oh my gosh. With having like been like labouring for so long, what was the birth of the placenta like?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
They had a low threshold for bleeding because I had a low HB.
Okay.
But the placenta came out fine. I literally stood up, you know, a few minutes. It must have been maybe 10 minutes after birth.
Yeah.
I stood up and I could feel it.
Yeah.
And just kind of gently, the midwife like tugged on the cord to guide it out.
Yeah.
And I gave a bit of a cough or something.
Yeah.
And it delivered.
Yeah.
It into a bowl.
Amazing.
And it looked like there was a fair bit of blood in the pool, but it's always so hard to tell.
Yeah.
In the pool.
So misleading. Yeah.
But then once I was out of the pool, blood loss was fine.
Yeah.
Just pausing here to thank the August sponsor for the podcast. Mama Goodness is a mum-owned business based in Melbourne, founded by Life After Birth authors Jessica Prescott and Vaughan Geary. Mama Goodness's goals are to nourish and nurture mums through motherhood. They create plant-powered, i.e. vegan, organic and naturopathic formulated products to support women through pregnancy, postpartum and beyond. Their lactation cookies are highly rated, There is also a gluten-free option, but they also sell lactation tea and granola. So if you're looking for a tasty treat for yourself or a gift for someone, check out Mama Goodness online now at www.mamagoodness.com.au. And thanks so much to Mama Goodness for supporting this month's podcast episodes.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I mean, that's like, yeah, first time labor, never done it before. I always like wonder, you know, because like as a nurse, you would have been like fairly active, right? Like on your feet, like bending, moving, whatever. Like how do babies just not get in the right position? Like,
no, I hadn't done any body work in that pregnancy.
Yeah.
I just was doing acupuncture.
Yeah.
And I was very active in the gym.
Yeah.
Up until like 36 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if maybe like my pelvic muscles were too tight or something.
Yeah.
Because I was lifting, you know, heavy weights at the time and things like that. But I don't know. But
yeah, a mystery.
Mm.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And then she was here after. Yeah. Wow. Holy moly.
I know.
Wow. What was your postpartum like with her, especially like in the context of, you know, COVID and whatever?
It was quite good actually. I don't remember it being, I mean, obviously there's a big adjustment.
Yeah.
That I think everyone goes through, but I felt quite good.
Yeah.
In my postpartum. I was on a high for I don't know how long, a long time.
Yeah.
About the birth, and I had no issues with breastfeeding or anything.
Yeah.
Other than a little bit of nipple damage in the first week.
Yeah.
Obviously hormones are going a bit crazy. I had my placenta encapsulated.
Cool.
And I found them helpful.
Yeah.
With my hormones and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, it was pretty cruisy, my postpartum with her. It was COVID.
Yeah.
She was a baby that, a clingy baby. I say that in inverted commas.
Yeah.
But because we had nowhere to be.
Yeah.
You know, nothing to do. I was just sitting on the couch with her.
Yeah. Can't be passed around to everyone. Yeah.
She spent a lot of her time in the carrier or, you know, going for walks. That was about all we could do.
Yeah, pretty much. At what point did you decide, so you were nursing before she was born, and then how long did you have off work after?
So I was in my grad year when I fell pregnant with her.
Yeah.
Then went on maternity leave for 2021 pretty much. And then I went and did my postgrad in midwifery in 2022.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. And how long did that take?
She was 10 months.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Amelie was 10 months when I went back.
Yeah.
So, and the postgrad was pretty much February to like November.
Yeah, cool. Wow. That would have been so intense though with a little baby. So just to clarify, so how many hours placement do you have to do?
Well, I did it we do it differently in SHEP. So
okay.
You don't go on placement. You work in the maternity ward.
Okay, yeah.
And birth suite.
Yeah.
You work there, you get paid for 6 shifts, and your 2 shifts a fortnight in birth suite are not paid. So that's
what? Why is Shepparton doing this?
Well, I think it's all changing now that everyone gets paid.
What? Yeah, from next year I've heard. But like, is that like a postgrad specific thing or
partial paid?
What?
Yeah.
That's
country hospitals do it, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's like amazing.
I know.
It's full on.
Yes.
Did you still have to do your 10 continuity of care things?
Yep.
Yeah.
So obviously you weren't paid for going to those.
Yeah.
And when you called in for a birth,
yeah,
you obviously weren't paid for those.
Yeah.
But you work on the ward, and I think you do a rotation through antenatal clinic and like domiciliary.
Yeah.
Which you paid for. And just your birth suite shifts you're not paid for because they're supernumerary. You're always with someone.
Well, I guess, as a nurse, you already have those skills. Wow, that's like blowing my mind. I didn't actually know that. Wow.
So it was good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a intense year. So full on.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that again.
No. And so, so you graduate at the end of 2022 or so.
Yep.
Yep. And then
I was just working as a midwife.
Yeah.
Pretty much as soon as when I got like halfway through the course, I was like, okay, let's start trying for another one, because even if I fall pregnant now, I'll be finished the course. I'll be finished the postgrad. Yeah. By the time we have the baby. I was still breastfeeding, so I had no cycle, but I was like hoping that it'll just be a little surprise. Yeah. So I tried for a few months, or maybe like 6 months or something, while I was still breastfeeding, and nothing was happening. There was no signs of any cycle or ovulation or anything. Yeah. So then I think Amelie was about 19 months, and I wanted to have another baby. So I weaned, which was fine. Yeah. And then I got a cycle straight away after I stopped breastfeeding. Wow. Like 10 days later.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
After I the last feed.
Yeah.
And I actually fell pregnant on that cycle. But had a miscarriage. Yeah. That was in November 22. Yeah, November 22. Yeah. And then it was a little while before another cycle came back again.
Wow.
And I think I had one more period, and then the next cycle after that, which was again a couple months later, they were very irregular. Yeah. I think I fell pregnant on the third cycle. Yeah. But it was a few months apart.
Yeah. And so at this time you were working as a midwife?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I was doing my grad. It's not a grad year, it's grad 6 months. Okay. As a midwife.
Yeah. Yeah. And just in the local hospital or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So just rotating through antenatal, birth suite, the ward, postnatal ward. Yeah. So yeah, I fell pregnant in March of 23. Yes. March 23.
Yeah. And how old is Elidy now?
She's 8 months now.
8 months, yeah. And so it was no questions asked that you would home birth again?
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
Even after 30 hours of labour?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's honestly so funny how you just forget about it.
Yeah, Mother Nature, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually didn't know what I was going to do. Like, it was going to be at home, but I thought I could possibly be free birthing. Yeah. Because there's only that the midwife that I didn't connect with in my first pregnancy. Yeah. Was the only option when I was early on in my pregnancy. Also, I just had this weird intuitive kind of hit that I was like, you need a free birth. Yeah. So I kind of started out planning to free birth, and then I felt a lot of pressure at work and things like that, with everyone asking, oh, who's your midwife, and what are you going to, what's your plans and things like that. Yeah. And I just kept on saying, oh, I'm not sure actually. Or I haven't found someone yet. I haven't found the right person, things like that. I was just brushing it off. And then one of our midwives at work, she's the one it's the same midwife that was at my first birth.
Okay.
Called.
That's the second. Yeah.
Because the one from Melbourne wasn't going to make it. So the local midwife, I love her. She's amazing. She said to me, I don't even think she knew I was pregnant at this point. But I always would say to her, you know, you need to become independent because I need you as my midwife at my next birth.
Yeah.
And she come to me when I was 15 weeks or something, was like, oh, I'm going to be working casually for this company.
Yeah.
They would like employ her or cover her insurance and things like that for her to cover the area.
Yeah. Cool.
Because the other midwife had gone on maternity leave.
Yeah.
So she's like, I'm going to be working casually to cover the area. And I was like, okay. And then I was really confused as to what to do.
Yeah.
Because I'd love Michelle and
that's right. I can beep it out. It's okay.
I'm happy to have her.
Yeah.
But I had been, I guess, preparing for a free birth.
Yeah.
Up until this point.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think, I was about 15 or 16 weeks and I was like, oh, I'm happy to have this midwife. I trust her.
Yeah.
So I signed up with her.
Yeah, cool.
And the pregnancy was fine. There was a little bit of stress, unnecessary stress.
Okay, yeah.
I had the 20-week scan,
yeah,
which I was happy to have. I'm like, I'll just have a 20-week scan, that's it.
Yeah.
And in the 20-week scan, it came up with echogenic focus on the liver or bowel. Tertiary scan recommended. So I had the 20-week scan in Shep.
What did it say? What?
Focus. And I was like,
what is that?
I read the report when I was at work. I read it myself because I'd had the scan done at work. And I was like, what the hell is that? And then asked like one of the doctors there.
Yeah. And
the doctor at work was like, oh, it's fine. They kind of thought it was like a patient's report.
That's funny. Brilliant. Yeah.
And I'm like, what is this? And the doctor was like, oh, it's fine. Like if there's no other abnormalities on the scan, then it's kind of, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Of course, I went and researched it all.
Yeah.
And was like, they can be linked with genetic abnormalities and all these things.
Okay.
But every single study said with no other abnormalities on the scan, they're likely benign.
Yeah.
Anyway, went to Melbourne to have a tertiary scan, but I was like, I don't want the full morphology scan again. I just want you to look at that calcification
thing. Yeah.
Focus. And that's it.
Yeah.
And when I went down there, I was kind of like thinking that they were going to be like, oh, it's nothing. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
It's kind of just over exaggeration from Shep because that kind of
panic
a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was like the opposite, and they're like, oh, there's 4 of these spots on the liver.
What the heck?
And I'm like, okay, so and I could see her measuring all the spots while she's doing the scan. I'm like,
wow,
oh, no, what is going on?
Yeah.
And then it's at this private like clinic in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Where I was having this scan done, and then the doctor's there on site.
Yeah. Okay.
So the doctor comes in and he goes, oh, do you know what these mean? And I said, oh, I've done a little bit of research. But, like Clay needs an explanation. And so it was very like fear-based and worst case scenario.
Yeah.
It was like that these are linked with genetic abnormalities and have you had the NIPT test done? And I hadn't.
Yeah.
And I said no. And then they made you feel like,
you're an idiot.
Like an idiot for not having that test done.
Yeah.
And recommended an amniocentesis. And I was like, absolutely not having an amnio.
Yeah.
And Clay was just like, what is going on?
What's an amniocentesis?
Yeah, we're talking this like medical like
Yeah, the jargon. Yeah.
Clay was like, what is going on? Like, I'm not a midwife. Can you explain?
Yeah. Can you dumb it down a little bit, please?
In like layman's terms?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, we have a genetic counsellor here on site that will get you to go through and talk to them.
Holy
after
moly.
the scan.
Yeah.
So we get shuffled on down to the genetic counsellor, and she explains again that these liver calcifications can be linked with like trisomy 13. Trisomy 13 is not compatible with life. And I was like, I was 22 weeks at this point. There's no way if this baby had trisomy 13, something else wouldn't be picked up on the scan.
Yeah.
Or this baby would have died.
Yeah.
And I just had this like the deepest inner knowing that there was absolutely nothing wrong
Wow.
with this baby.
Yeah.
And I was like, this baby is fine.
Yeah.
And the genetic counsellor has to go through all the scenarios.
Oh my gosh.
But she didn't go through the scenario where if there's nothing else abnormal on the scan, it's most likely fine. She just said all the, like, worst case things. Clay was absolutely like stressing. And I said, yeah, they're recommending amnio. And I said, I'm not having amnio. I'll do the NIPT test.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Just to ease Clay's mind.
Yeah.
A little bit. And that's not going to cause any harm to the baby anyway.
Yeah.
So I was happy to do that blood test for the NIPT.
And anytime someone ever says amniocentesis to me, I get like a shiver through my body because it just like so much love to people that like have to have that or choose to have that because like
I know. And I walked out of that appointment, I was like to Clay, if I didn't do my own research or wasn't in touch with my intuition and just believed that everything they just said, I would be in an absolute mess right now.
Yeah.
And be booking in for an amniocentesis, which was completely unnecessary.
Yeah. Which would further put your baby at risk.
At risk, yeah, I know. So I was on the drive home, I was like to Clay because he was stressed and he was like, what happened with your sister's baby? You know, was there something wrong with it? And I was like, no, there was nothing wrong with him. It was just for whatever reason he chose not to come.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in our family. Like I said, I can't explain this feeling, but I'm telling you 100% there is nothing wrong with this baby.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have the deepest knowing that this baby is completely fine. I forgot to mention earlier that I, from the conception or even before conception, had a really strong connection with this baby.
Wow.
It was like I could literally conversate with it.
Wow.
With Elidy.
Yeah.
It was just it was really magical. Like I didn't have that in my first pregnancy, and I don't know what it was with this second time around that I just felt so in touch with my baby.
Yeah.
And I honestly would just be like, are you okay? I would just like sit there and be like, are you okay? And just get the answer drop in.
Wow.
Kind of thing. It was really, I was like,
so amazing.
Sound probably really bananas.
No, but you're not the only person that's told me this. You're not the only person. I think like other mums that have told me this have referred to it as like a spirit baby. And even like before, like subsequent like miscarriages or whatever, they've known that this baby is coming, and like for whatever number in line, they're connected. Like that just gives me like full body shivers. But like you're not the first person to tell me that. So
and honestly, I don't care if I sound crazy because
that's your experience.
And it was so strong. And I had so many like signs from this baby. Who's now Elity.
Yeah.
That everything was okay.
Yeah.
And I would like ask for a sign. I would be like, can you send me feathers
Yeah.
if you're all good? And I would get feathers on the doorstep.
Holy crap.
The next morning.
Whoa.
It was wild.
Oh my gosh. Magic.
So yeah, anyway, the plan was from Melbourne to do the NIPT and have a follow-up scan at 28 weeks.
Yeah. And like with all of this going on, the midwifery care providers that you'd chosen, did they start to impart any doubts on your opportunity to, or, you know, choice to home birth or anything like that?
No.
Cool.
It was all, I was worried about that. I was like, is this going to mean that like I can't home birth? Or,
Yeah.
or, you know, I still would have, but.
Yeah. With their support. Yeah.
And she was like, no, like if it's just on the liver, there's no other signs of anything wrong. The baby's still going to come out breathing if its liver is, you know, not 100%.
Yeah.
So liver can function at a very low percentage.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was all fine. I had a follow-up scan or a repeat scan at 28 weeks at the same place, and they were all the exact same. The spots were all the same size and everything.
Yeah.
The NIPT had come back fine.
Yeah.
And in the doctor comes in again during the scan and he's like, oh, that's good. They're all the same size. La, la, la. All right, we'll do a repeat at 32 weeks. And I was like, no, we're not. Like, why?
Yeah.
What's it going to change?
Yeah.
So, yeah, they wanted to do more scans. I said, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Left, got the report for that scan, and it come up, you know, that all the liver calcifications were the same size, but now there's an amniotic band, which is like, do you know what?
No.
Anyone that doesn't know, it's like a little piece of the lining of the amniotic sac that is loose, and in very rare cases it can wrap around a limb. And so babies can be born with like
what the heck?
Misformed limbs and things like that.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, are you kidding? What are they going to pick up next?
Oh my gosh. And like
yeah,
like I guess you can scan
Exactly.
and like you might know things before the baby's born, but if the baby's still going to be born like heart beating, breathing, like you can deal with all of that stuff after, you know, like a heads up, sure, maybe if you're certain, but otherwise it's just like unnecessary stress, which is also harmful.
I know.
Like,
and I was like, no more scans.
I'm not coming here again. Yeah.
Like they're just going to pick up something else.
Yeah.
Like the next time. It was unnecessary. Like it said, all limbs are clear.
Yeah.
And I'm not an expert on these, but I doubt that at 28 weeks a limb is going to get caught in this thing. Like I think it would be too big. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea either, but I'm on the same logic as you. Yeah.
So I had no more scans after that.
Yeah.
And honestly, I felt like the world was off my shoulders after I said, no, I'm not doing another scan. I'm not doing any more tests. Yeah. This baby is fine.
Yeah. I'm going to scurry back off to like Shepparton. I'm not going to Melbourne again. You guys suck.
I'm going back into my bubble.
Yeah.
So that was good. After 28 weeks, it was a smooth sailing.
Yeah, amazing. Did you like have any like plans to do anything different, like in labour or like in your preparation for labour? Did you think that you would have Amelie there?
I wanted her to be. Yeah. I just envisioned that it would happen overnight. I never thought that I would labour in the day. Which I ended up in the day.
Yeah.
But I just thought it would happen overnight, and I thought Amelie will probably hear me and hop up. And I'd planned to have my mum there to look after Amelie.
Yeah.
My mum wasn't at my first birth, and yeah, with this one, I wanted her there to look after Amelie. I just, when I'm labouring, I mostly want to be alone.
Yeah.
Even Clay, I'm a bit like, don't touch me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I did a bit more body work in this pregnancy. I think I started going to chiro from about 20 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
And acupuncture. Yeah, that's all. I just really wanted the baby to be in a good position. I was doing the spinning babies, daily things.
The workout thing. Yeah.
But otherwise,
Did you go a little bit easier on gym, or were you back at gym?
yeah, no, I didn't go to the gym at all.
Yeah.
I had no energy. I think working was enough.
Yeah.
It's so
True.
So on your feet and running around and birth suite and bending down and
Yeah. How did you find working in birth suite or, any of the other areas whilst you're pregnant yourself?
yeah, not easy.
Yeah.
I really had to, I would leave a shift in birth suite and go and listen to a free birth podcast.
Yeah. To balance it out. Oh, gosh. It's not a bad idea, actually, but
Just remind myself, okay, this is actually what's normal.
yeah, physiological birth
I
exists.
promise normal does happen.
Yeah.
It's honestly just
Wow. Yeah.
I had to do a lot of energy things to try and protect my energy from all that fear.
Yeah.
And just the energy in the hospital. I really had to work hard to protect myself from that and not let it get in.
Yeah.
I think if I had been a midwife with before I had my first birth, it would have rolled me. I think I probably wouldn't have had a home birth.
Yep.
And I think that's just the way the universe sorted everything out, because as I said before we started recording, I had gone for the midwifery job just before I was pregnant with my first, and I didn't get it, and then I found out I was pregnant, and then everything happened the way it did, and so I had that solid foundation of what a birth is, what a normal birth is, before I went into the hospital, because I knew that the system's a bit fucked.
Yeah. To put it politely.
But I didn't know the extent.
Yeah.
Until I started working in there, and I was like, holy moly.
Yeah.
What just happened?
Yeah.
At most births, I'm just like, what on earth?
Yeah.
So, I really had to work hard to protect my energy in that second pregnancy, working in birth suite. I think I asked to stop working in there from about 30 weeks.
Yeah.
I did have an occasional shift down there after that, but, I didn't really want to work down there. But it's still hard on the ward anyway, because then you're dealing with the women, the postnatal women that are traumatised.
Yeah.
What just happened.
Yeah, and in shock and, yeah.
So, I was glad to finish. I finished at 35 weeks, I think.
Yep.
And then just really went into a bit of a bubble.
Yeah.
And, I think I just listened to a few more podcasts and things to
just block everything else out. Yeah.
And then towards the end, I just was like, all right, now just whatever happens.
Yeah.
I just was listening to my own intuition and things like that.
Yeah. Did you get much of a mat leave kind of situation before baby came along?
I had the full. Well, Elidy was born at 40 plus 4.
Yeah.
And I went on leave at 35 weeks, but obviously it's a bit different
with the toddler.
When you have a toddler.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I can't remember. I didn't do anything really.
Yeah.
Just nesting.
Yeah.
And waiting.
Yeah. Did you have
my birth space
any
set up.
Signs earlier in this
No,
pregnancy?
I had nothing.
Yeah.
So I got to like 40 weeks. So I forgot to mention with Amelie, my first, I had her on a due date.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And then with Elidy, I got to 40 weeks.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, where are you? Yeah. And I know.
Now is
so
the time.
stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
But I was like, why am I going over?
Yes. I'm late. The minute it ticks past 40 weeks.
But I was kind of getting in my head because I'd had signs early with Amelie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd had no signs of anything.
Wow.
With Elidy.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm not even anywhere near having a baby.
Yeah.
I'm pregnant for another 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was expecting the same sort of signs.
Yeah. And so to clarify as well, so in this pregnancy you didn't have like any of the swelling or weird blood pressure or anything like that? No.
Nah, everything was fine.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, other than the whole ultrasound
scan schmozzle. Yeah. Yeah.
Everything was, perfect in pregnancy. Yeah, so I had no signs of anything. And then this time it was another like slow start or slow burn.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I started getting some cramps on the Thursday morning. Yeah. And I messaged my mum and I was like, oh, can you just have Amelie for a few hours? Like I'm a bit crampy. I wonder if Amelie's, cared for, will it
change things?
Kick off a little bit.
Yeah.
So Amelie went to mum's for a bit. And then it got to the afternoon and I was like, nothing's changed. They were, I don't know, coming every so often but not painful.
Yeah.
And I was like, you can bring Amelie home. And, we just had dinner as normal that night.
Yeah.
I thought they're going to kick off. It's going to kick off tonight when Amelie goes to bed.
Yeah.
And put Amelie to bed. I went to bed, fell asleep for a few hours.
Yeah.
Woke up at about 2, so on the Friday morning. And I was like, oh, yeah, they're a little bit more intense now.
Yeah.
I couldn't really lay still, so I got up and went into my birth space that I had set up and put the TENS machine on and was sitting on the ball, but they were like 10 minutes apart. I was falling asleep in between and I'm like, I'm not sitting here.
Yeah, yeah.
like for ages waiting for this to get closer.
Yeah.
So I went back to bed with the TENS machine on and just laid on my side and I found the TENS really helpful this time.
Yeah, cool, yeah.
My first labour, I didn't like it much, but I found it really helpful this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just laying in bed and like breathing through them until the morning, around 6. My husband woke up and he's like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm like, they're a bit more intense now. Still a while off though.
Yeah.
At 6 in the morning, I got up and had some breakfast. It was like, I need to get food in this time.
Yeah.
And I text my midwife and just let her know I was in early labour, but I was all good.
Yeah.
And I had the photographer booked again.
Yeah.
But she's a wedding photographer.
Oh.
And so there's always that like chance that she could be at a wedding.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's a Friday. Surely she's not at a wedding on a Friday. I think we should be good.
Yeah.
And she bloody had a wedding.
No.
I was so disappointed. But I was like, oh, it's too late to try and find someone else now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think next time I'll have to have a backup.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, I was just pottering around with the TENS machine on. Amelie woke up and she was like, I said, oh, Mum, my baby's going to be here today, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And she was like rubbing my back and all
so sweet. So yeah.
And yeah, we just potted around as normal that morning. I was like labouring in my room.
Yeah.
With the TENS machine on. I had my room set up nice as well because I spent most of my time in my first labour in my room.
Yeah.
So instead of the birth space.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So I'm like, I'm going to set my room up nice this time too because I'll probably stay in there most of the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And Clay was just looking after Amelie out in the lounge room, and I think they went to the playground for a little bit. And I really enjoyed that time in early labour by myself, and I was just excited that it was happening and it wasn't too intense yet, and I was just going with the flow.
Yeah.
And it was a really nice time. And I felt really relaxed. And I was just doing that on my own for a couple of hours until about 12 o'clock, like lunchtime. I think it was getting a bit more intense, and I was like, oh, I think I need Clay now.
Yeah.
So I texted my mum and I was like, can you please come and look after Amelie? And I wanted her to look after her at our house, like at home, but I didn't communicate that. So Mum come and picked her up, picked Amelie up.
And took her away.
Yeah, and took her to her house, which is only around the corner, but I heard Amelie leave and I burst into tears.
Yes, where's my other baby?
I was just like, oh my God, that's the last time.
Yeah.
Like, she's going to be my only baby. And it was just, I had this big emotional release.
Yeah.
And Clay came in at that point. He must have thought I was crying about the labour.
Yeah.
I was crying because Amelie left.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, it's okay. In my head, I was like, I'll just get her to come back, when we're a bit closer.
Yeah.
Then I got in the shower for a little bit. Clay was like, you going to let me know when you need the midwife? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're all good. It's still fine. It was getting more intense, so it's definitely active labour at this point.
Yeah.
I was in the shower for a little bit, which I find the water helpful, but I find the shower so uncomfortable. Like, I just can't get in a good position.
Yeah. Did you have like a chair or yoga mats or anything
I
in
had
it?
like a knee pad.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
To, go on all fours over the ball, things like that, but it just wasn't comfortable.
Yeah.
And then I think I got Clay to call the midwife at about 2, and she had text earlier and said, like, how are you going? And I was like, yep, still all good.
Yeah.
Don't need to come yet. And then, it got to like 2, and I felt like I needed another woman there.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm ready for midwife to come now.
Yeah.
I was eating and drinking in this labour. I actually felt hungry. I was like, can you go get me some watermelon?
Yeah.
Some cashews.
Yeah.
And I was able to drink a fair, I said to Clay, you need to offer me water a lot, like in this labour, because I didn't drink enough in Amelie's, and I think that was like a big part of the problem as well. Yeah. Of me being so exhausted. He was offering drinks frequently, and I was able to drink them, and I was just I was much more relaxed at this point, and I was just using horse's breath, which I found really helpful. And then, my midwife got there, and it was fairly intense. She did check me when she came, which again, I was like, I don't want as many checks as last time. And I found them really painful in the first labour. Yeah. But I was like, if we're worried about position or something, I'm happy for a check. Yeah. To, see if the baby's in a skew-if position again, something like that. I think she checked me when she arrived so that we could know, so that she could either call the midwife from Melbourne or a local. Yeah. We had a backup local midwife if the one from Melbourne wasn't going to make it. Yeah. I was like, it's fine. Just don't tell me what I am. And it actually, the examination this time wasn't painful at all. I was actually fine. I think I was really tense in the first labour. Yeah. Anyway, I heard her on the phone say that I was 5 centimetres.
Oh, no. Oh, damn it.
Which was fine. I thought I was about that anyway. Yeah. And not that it matters anyway. It didn't bother me. Yeah.
But that just goes to show, like, even though you might observe, like, a woman in labor, like not sort of being aware of her surroundings. Like sometimes like you do need to be like careful. I remember putting that in my little birth plan thing that, you know, if you need to have conversation, please like go upstairs, or like I don't want to, you know, hear anything, you know. Yeah.
So the second midwife was coming from Melbourne, and I think it was about an hour later, maybe around 3:30.
Yeah.
I'd gotten in the pool, so once my midwife got there, she was like, "Do you want us to run the pool?" And I was like, "Yep, I'm ready to hop in there."
Yeah.
And I got in the pool, and that was divine. And then I got that involuntary push again. That same positional one.
No.
And it was like that real like grunt.
Yeah.
Vomit type thing. And I was like, straight away, I was like, you're fucking kidding me.
Yeah.
Like, not this again.
Not again.
And I feel like I just went back to my first labour.
Yeah.
And I was like, really started to get in my head.
Yeah.
When this started happening. So my midwife was like, "Oh, you're getting pressure?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am, but it's not like good pressure.
Yeah.
It's like positional." And yeah, I couldn't help the involuntary. It was at the peak of each contraction it would happen.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Should we call like the local midwife?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, sure, but I don't think this is like bearing, like I don't think this is baby coming."
Yeah.
I think it's, you know, positional. I didn't vocalise all this. It was kind of in my head.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, the second midwife can come, like the local one.
Yeah.
I love her anyway.
Yeah.
So I wanted her there.
Yeah.
So she came, and yeah, I was just kind of dealing with, or trying to, I didn't know what to do again with this involuntary pushing. I just stayed in the pool, and I just was kind of letting my body do whatever it was trying to do, baby move position, whatever it was happening for.
Yeah.
And it went on for about an hour, and I was like, what do I do?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know whether to breathe through or go with it. And I started, to get really in my head. I'm like, we're going to be here all night. This is not happening again. And I asked my midwife to check me. I'm like, can you just see, is it positional? Like, what's going on? Like, is she in it? Is the baby in it? Malposition? Should I breathe through? I didn't know what to do. She checked me and, like, didn't tell me what I was, but she's like, just try and breathe through a little bit, and I think we need to do some spinning babies. And I was like, oh, my God.
No.
And she goes, to try and get the head better applied to the cervix.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, not again.
Yeah.
And I was, again, like, really in my head. I started to spiral a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, I was previously very relaxed and, like, felt like I was coping really well.
Yeah.
And then I feel like I started to spiral once all this happened.
Yeah, of course.
I'm like, I went and sat on the toilet backwards for a little bit because she said, I think we need to do some inversions. I'm like, all right, I just need to try and do a wee.
Yeah.
And I just, when she said we need the head a bit more, better well applied to the cervix, I'm like, I'm going to sit on the toilet backwards.
Yeah.
And had a few contractions there, which I felt like really helped. I had a show after that, like a bloody show. And then, I went to do the inversions. I think we did 6 or something. And, again, just hell.
Yeah. 6 is, like, very impressive to me. Like, I can't even imagine, like, if you'd told me to do 1, I would have been like, no. Like,
yeah, I know, it's awful.
Oh.
And then I think I got back in the pool. By this point, the second midwife had arrived from Melbourne.
Okay, yeah.
So there's 3 midwives there now.
Yeah.
But the second was just in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Doing, not present. And the local one, I'm backtracking a little bit.
All right.
But when I started to get the pressure, I said for Mum and Amelie to come back.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So Amelie was around.
Yeah.
and she really latched on to the local midwife, the one that we called the third.
Yeah.
And was besties with her.
Oh.
So she was pottering around like while I'm doing inversions. When I would get up, she'd be jumping. Amelie would start jumping on the chair. In between me doing the inversions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she'd come and rub my back every now and then, and it was so cute.
So cute.
And she would then go down to Mum for a little bit. Mum was just in the lounge room.
Yeah.
Anyway, after the inversions, got back in the pool, was still having this involuntary pushing for about another hour, I think.
Yeah.
And I was so over it. And at this point, just the extra midwife was in the birth space.
Yeah.
And I was like, can we just break more waters? I'm done.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, this is transition.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
And she's like, are you sure? I'm like, yep, I know once these waters are gone, this baby's going to come.
Yeah.
And she went and told my main midwife, and my midwife come around. She's like, everything's going normally. Everything's progressing well. And I'm like, nah, I want the broken.
Yeah.
This is my midwife brain coming.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, they had to say, if there's mech, we have to transfer. And I was just thinking in my head, well, I'm just not going to transfer.
Yeah, stuff yous. Yeah.
Into an ambulance.
Yeah.
And I said, it's tell me what I am and I'll make the decision.
Yeah.
And so I got out of the pool quickly. She did like a check, I guess.
Yeah.
And she said, you're 8 centimetres, doing really well. And I was like, break them.
Yeah, this is not quick enough. I don't need 8. I need 10. I need fully.
If I was any less than 8 centimetres, I would have left it intact.
Yeah.
But I'm like, nah, once these waters are gone,
Yeah.
this baby's going to come. And she broke my waters, and they both, like my main midwife and the third midwife, both were in there, and they go, oh. And I'm like, is there mech? And they're like, yep. I'm like, just give me 5 minutes, I'll have a baby.
Hold that thought. Oh my gosh.
And I got back up and I got in that pool, and I was like talking to my baby, and I was like, come on, it's time to come.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
It was like very thin mech.
Yeah.
Hardly anything. I was not concerned at all.
What time of day is this roughly?
This is at 6:30.
Yeah.
My waters got broken.
Yeah.
At my request. Not sure how I feel about it.
Yeah. No. It's part of the story, right?
I know. It all went well.
Yeah.
So if it had gone pear-shaped, maybe I would regret it. But
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got back in the pool, and I immediately felt, no, actually that's not. It took a couple contractions to figure out, is this bearing down now, or is this still that involuntary push? But after a couple contractions, I'm like, yeah, no, this is different. This is proper pushing.
Yeah.
But because I kind of had that looming threat, I'm going to say, of an ambulance being called because of the mech, I feel like I pushed Elidy from high in my pelvis. Mm-hmm. So with Amelie, I really felt down. I really felt her drop down into the birth canal, and she felt really easy to push out. Whereas I think Elidy was still up higher, and I pushed her, actively pushed her down. Yeah. A bit before she was, fully, before she maneuvered herself down.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I feel like I started actively pushing. Yeah. Before I should have. Yeah. Just to hurry up and get her out.
Yeah.
They were still born in the same, second stage was still the same amount of time, about 25 minutes. Yeah. But I just felt really hard to push Elidy out in comparison to Amelie. But yeah, again, I just felt so much relief that she was coming. Yeah. And that I could actually work with the urge to push, and it wasn't that involuntary, not really ready to push. Yeah. But my body's just doing it anyway. Yeah. Yeah, I pushed for 25 minutes and she was
then she was there.
With Elidy, I called her
Yeah.
and brought her out to my chest, which was really cool. I didn't do that with Amelie.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was perfect.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, and Amelie was there.
Yeah.
Amelie was watching over with Clay.
Yeah.
She was absolutely fine. Like while I'm pushing and everything that you can see in the video, she's like rubbing my back and playing with the hose and trying to get the duck in the pool.
Oh,
and then
so
when
sweet.
Elidy actually emerged, Amelie got a little bit overwhelmed. She was just like, what just happened?
Where did that come from? Oh, wow.
And, someone said to me, like, it was probably a big shift of energy in the room as well because a new soul's just come.
Yeah.
And Amelie's probably more receptive to that.
Yeah.
Or more sensitive to that than adults.
Yeah.
But it literally 5 minutes and she was like jumping around everywhere again and so excited.
Just another day.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Elidy was born at 6:55 p.m.
Yeah.
Which I never imagined like labouring in the day. And having a baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, at that time.
Yeah. It
was daylight savings at the time, so it was still like light outside.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Placenta again was easy.
Yeah.
Just like 10 minutes later I just stood up and I guided it out myself this time.
Yeah. And the mech and whatever was all good.
Oh, you couldn't even see anything in the water.
Yeah.
Like I think it was just a little bit on the pad when my waters were broken. I couldn't see any of it in the pool.
Yeah.
Like I think it was a really minute amount.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So there's like another fairly decent labour.
I know. Like they just starts off really like slow and just kind of like teases you for a day pretty much. Yeah. And then this, like Elidy's active labour was shorter.
Yeah.
But again, I was really in my head. I'm like, why am I still in labour?
Yeah.
This is second baby.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I went to a birth the other day and first baby 5.5 hours. And I was like, that's so fucking unfair. That's so unfair. And I came home and I said to my husband, I was like, why? Like, both my labours weren't 30 hours. I think Murphy was like 16 or something, and then Frankie was 18. But I mean, Frankie was the second baby, so I was like, shorter labour, quicker, like all of the above. Yeah. And then when it was actually longer, I was like, I have been ripped off.
I know.
Like, and so now, like thinking into the future, if we choose to have like another baby, I'm like, well, like, is it gonna be even longer? Like, that's like Mother Nature. Hello, that's not fair. Like my body's done this before. Yeah, but the exhaustion. Yeah.
I feel like this second time I got over it much quicker than with Amelie. I think I was just comparing so much.
Yeah.
And with my first, like in either of them, there's no way I would have been like, I'm done, I want to go to hospital.
Yeah.
But with Amelie, I just went on and on and on. I never like said, I'm over this. I never wanted to give up or anything. Yeah. And where with Elidy, I was be like, all right, I'm done now.
Yeah.
Why is this still going?
Yeah. But even like, the thought of like going to the hospital, I mean, at least in my experience, like I was 1000% committed to that journey. And if it was going to take however long it was going to, like, and that's just, like a lot of it can be a bit sucky, you know, but like the only way is through. So
that's it. I know in both pregnancies, you know, my midwives have said, oh, just pack a hospital bag. I'm like, nah, not happening.
Yeah, I am very committed to this.
Well, it's just not
You'll have to taser me to get me to the hospital. It'll knock me out. Yeah, holy moly. And I guess also something else to think about as well is that second time round, you've got that midwife brain. So you are putting all the pieces together and being like, oh, well, you know, why is this? Maybe this, perhaps that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that can like definitely
I was worried
catch you out.
And I was like, and like some other midwives said, no, you don't think about those things. But I did.
Yeah.
It's definitely, I was like, yeah, felt like I was doing great. And then until that involuntary pushing started happening, I started to like spiral.
Yeah.
I was getting really in my head and my mood just changed. Like prior, I was really relaxed.
Yeah.
And like, yep, this is actually feeling much easier than Amelie's.
Yeah.
Like, I was coping much better and yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Do you have any plans to become a home birth midwife?
Well, yes, until all this stuff recently has happened, and I'm like, is there any point if that's going to go ahead?
Yeah.
So I don't actually know.
Good point.
Where?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, what's going to happen in the future?
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't really anytime soon anyway.
Yeah.
With, you know, two
little kids.
and being on call and
absolutely
things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Join the
definitely
club.
can't be a midwife in the hospital forever.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sure where things will take me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was lovely to chat to you on a Saturday morning.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.